In this chapter, we'll be talking about integration. First, we'll talk about integration with Photoshop. If you're following along, I'm working in utah.psd in the Chapter 17 folder in the Exercise Files folder. I've opened up this file in Photoshop just to show you what's in it. There are three layers. Utah, that's the text layer with a shadow. The gradient layer has a gradient that's at the bottom of the picture. And the background layer that just contains the background image. Now let's bring this image into Flash. I'm going over to Flash now. The file I'm working in Flash is o1_photoshop.fla. That file is also in the Chapter 17 folder in the Exercise Files folder. The integration with Photoshop and Flash CS3 is excellent. There's actually a whole section of Flash preferences devoted to importing Photoshop files. Go to Flash, Preferences, on the PC that's Edit, Preferences, and choose PSD File Importer for the category. That's on the left side of the Preferences window. And here, you could specify default settings for importing PSD files. For example, you can choose a setting for importing image layers. I'm going to choose bitmap images with editable layer styles. I'm going to choose import text layers as editable text. I'm going to choose import shape layers as editable paths and layer styles. You can also choose options for layer groups, merge bitmaps, and the default movie clip registration when you choose to create movie clips. We'll talk about that just a little bit later. You can also specify the compression for images that you import. We'll just leave that at the default setting for now and click OK. Now let's import the PSD file. Choose File, Import, Import to Stage, or the keyboard shortcut Command-R on the Mac, Control-R on the PC. Here we're looking for the Exercise Files folder, Chapter 17, and utah.psd. Select that file and click the Import button to import it into Flash. And here, you can choose which layers you want to import by checking the box next to that layer. You can also specify the settings for importing each layer by selecting the layer on the left side of the menu. I selected the Utah layer at the top. On the right side of this menu, you can see that editable text is already selected. Now, if we wanted to create a movie clip for this layer, we could check the Create Movie Clip for this layer box. We can even give this movie clip an instance name. I'll call it Utah_MC. Let's select the gradient layer on the left side of the window, and you could choose options for importing the gradient layer. Flash has selected bitmap image with editable layer styles, because that's what we put in our preferences, so we'll leave that. We'll give this movie clip an instance name of gradient_MC. And for the background layer, we can do the same thing. So select the background layer on the left side of the window, leave bitmap image with editable layer style selected for the import option, and we'll give this image an instance name of background_MC. Let's take a look at the bottom of this window. Convert layers to flash layers, or you can choose keyframes. Let's choose flash layers. And then, these are the really neat options. We can place the layers at the original position that they were in Photoshop, which is great. And then we could set the stage size in Flash to the same size as the Photoshop canvas. Check that box, and then click OK. Notice what just happened. Flash brought in all the graphics. They have the same names as they did in Photoshop, Utah, Gradient, and Background. They're placed in the same positions. And Flash even resized the stage for us. That's great. Let's deselect everything by clicking on the pasteboard. Then I'm going to select the Utah text. Notice it has an instance name of Utah_MC. Flash is telling us in the Property Inspector that this is an instance of a movie clip called Utah. To take a look at that instance, look in the library. A folder in a library holds library assets. If you double-click a folder in the library, you can expand that folder. You'll see the three movie clips that we created: Background, Gradient, and Utah. Flash also created an Assets folder in the library. If you double-click the Assets folder icon, you can open that up as well and see that there are two bitmap images, Background and Gradient. I'm going to double-click the Assets folder again to close it. Notice on the stage that Utah didn't come over with its drop shadow like we created in Photoshop. But that's no problem. Because this text is in a movie clip, we can apply a filter just like we can to any other movie clip. So let's do that right now. With the text still selected, select the Filters tab at the bottom of the screen, click the Add Filter button, choose Drop Shadow, and there's our drop shadow. Now let's select the gradient on the stage. Click the Properties tab at the bottom of the screen, open the Property Inspector, and notice the instance name, gradient_MC, and it's an instance of the gradient movie clip, just like you'd expect in the Flash import settings. Select the background image. Notice that in the Property Inspector it's an instance of the background movie clip, and it has an instance name of background_MC. Now that these assets are in Flash, we can treat them just like any other Flash element. And there's a look at integrating with Photoshop.